All right, here we go.
Over to the language.
Wow, what is that language? I never heard that before.
We hopping right into it. We hopping right into it, y'all. I might even finish the whole thing and then just have it so I can edit. So we got 2 hours. Everybody lock in. Let's go. All right. Chapter 4.
Aspects of our culture. So over to the language.
Wow, what is that language? I never heard that before. Where does it come from? And it sparks conversation that's definitely necessary for this day and time for people to know about the true first original language.
Welcome. I guess this is the first time. Okay, we're doing a question answer regarding our language. Miss Batia. Okay, we just introduced ourselves. I'm Usir Kaare, and my brother here is.
I'm Happy Ray Atam Hatap. We are one of the many student teachers of the master teacher, Parnabab Yananan.
That's so
affectionately
dope. That
known to
are
us
so
as
dope.
Baba
Sorry.
Yanun, incarnated deity in human form. In the Arabic, someone like
I think I'm gonna need captions, bro. Let's see how the captions work for us real quick, okay? All right.
Ray Atam Hatap. We are one of the many student teachers of the master teacher, Parnabab Yananan, affectionately known to us as Baba Yanun, incarnated deity in human form. In the Arabic, someone like himself is referred to as an Ila Mutajassid, divine being in human. In the Hindu, they refer to someone like himself as an avatar. In the Hebrew, they say he would be referred to as an Elo of the Elohim. In the Greek, they will say he's a theos or an angelos, an angelic being, a messenger. And in the Egyptian mystery systems, he's someone like himself referred to as a Nitir or a Nadar of the Nadaru or the Nitiru, an overseer. Galactically, he's referred to as the Marzaqum, a Rizkian from a star system called Ilion and a planet called Rizq. In the personage of His Excellency Dr. Malachi Z.K. York Okran, 33 degrees over 720 degrees.
Right, Ajebo, that's eloquently put by my elder here. I'm going to call him an elder because he's Mukdal. Yeah, Mukdal means elder in our Saib Sabay language. So, there's been a lot of questions online regarding the language, its origin, what is the science of it, how it deals with us as a race of people. So we're going to try and delve into that as much as possible, given the short space of time that we have. But it's worth doing because in this day and time, it's needed. We, as a race of people, even though you can go to the wide continent of Africa, have different dialects of languages. The true language originated in our motherland, but it was spoken, and we are now reactivating it by way of our master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z. So the questions is, where did it evolve from? Things like that. And, what does the FAC, we have tones in our language. How does it pronounce certain words? And what does the actual alphabet look like, which we refer to as harufat or harafat. Okay, so you can go on, we're going to mention also that you can go onto certain platforms where you can actually learn the language for yourself and also delve into it and let those tones manifest, because it's the tones that will help liberate our minds, and it also helps reconfigure. But we're going to get into the science of all of that in this time that we have. I want to jump off, Zamal, if that's okay, with the
Zamal. Oh my gosh, caption might be in the way. Caption might be in the way, gang. That learn some more than hi and bye, okay? Rahubat and what is it? Wadu. Uh, that's all I know. Rahubat. Wadu.
Time that we have. I want to jump off, reconfigure, because it's the tones that will help liberate our minds, and it also helps reconfigure. But we're going to get into the science of all of that in this time that we have. I want to jump off, Zamal, if that's okay,
Zamal.
with the speaking of tongues and the origin of our language. So within this book here, it's called Pt.3, okay? And Pt.3 is it's a compendium of a larger book, okay, which has been put down into smaller forms.
So, okay. I need to know how many of these, like, if you do put it all into a book, how big is the book? Cause I saw it on the wall and stuff. That looks like 200. I don't know. But what if it was all in one book?
For us to be able to digest, because it's coming from an out formation perspective brought
Oh
by
my
our.
gosh, I think he just said it. I think he just said it. Hold on. Hold on. Speaking of tongues.
Okay. And Pt.3 is basically it's a compendium of a larger book, okay, which is being put down into smaller forms for us to be able to digest, because it's coming from an out formation perspective brought by our master teacher, Baba Yanun. Okay, so I'm gonna read a portion, and hopefully you'll understand that.
Okay, no big book. Okay. Yeah.
You're gonna hear certain
Understood.
hints of other tones in there, like Arabic. You're gonna hear tones of Hebrew, etc. But be assured that when you go and research the language, this predates all of them. It's an ancient Egyptian language, which they call the mystery system, or they call it hieroglyphics. That was the pictorial, but the actual spoken language is Misbatia or Sabian, okay, or Saba. So this is Pt.3, the revelation to the Nuwapians, Pt.3, the way. Na tuk shalel lasanat, okay, speaking of tongues. So just an explanation of where the language came from for those who are asking. Number 1, verse 1. Lekum aye Nuwapu yasar aye kharadu. Okay, and that translates, for you, my Nuwapian family, my children. Number 2. Beloved and wise are Nuwapians who choose to learn and to speak our ancient language and tongue. Nuwapoyi, or as we've updated the tones, it's Misbatia, but it still can be used Nuwapoyi. The first spoken language on Taha, earth. Most will claim, because they believe in the Torah as the book of creation, that the beginning of life on Taha, earth began with one male named Adam. Okay, so from that they're saying that Adam named everything, and because of the Torah they say Hebrew or Aramaic was the first language. When you go and do your research, you find out that that language that we're speaking predates all of them. Okay, and Hebrew is just pertaining to a particular time frame when a particular person was referred to as a Hebrew, and that goes into the name of Abraham, who's referred to as a Hebrew in the book of Genesis. Okay, so the same thing with the Arabic. The Arabic stemmed by way of his progeny, which was Ishmael, who was the son of Abraham. So as you can see that these languages are stemming off. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what language would Abraham have spoken, because he went into Egypt, okay? So he had to communicate to the Pharaoh in a language. So the question is, what was that language? It must have been something that was there before, because we know that Egypt was the first civilization on the planet, yeah? The ancient civilization of Egyptian civilization was the first on the planet. Some people argue that it's Mesopotamia, but the original languages and what they call the cuneiform script, etc., originated in Egypt. So the language that Abraham was able to communicate to this Egyptian pharaoh in must have been that language which we speak in this book as being Sabaic or Sabbatic or Misbatia or Nuwapu or Nuwapuyi. Okay, so that's just an introduction to that. There's a few more things in here.
It's a very interesting excerpt that was just read there. And the question to ask now is, Adam was the first man, according to monotheism, on the planet. The question is now, what language did he speak and who taught him? Now, if we go back to Abraham, who is regarded as being the patriarch of monotheism, and he didn't speak Hebrew, what language did he speak? Let's start with Abraham. So you have to go back to where he...
I'm not gonna lie. That's why I'm getting lost, man. I'm trying. Let's go back just a little bit, gang.
Monotheism on the planet. The question is now, what language did he speak and who taught him? Now, if we go back to Abraham, who is regarded as being the patriarch of monotheism, and he didn't speak Hebrew, what language did he speak? Let's start with Abraham. So you have to go back to where he comes from. According to the Bible, he's from Ur of Chaldea, which would be Mesopotamia. So what language did he speak? The language he spoke was called Ugarit. That's the language he spoke, was called Ugarit. And he was taught that language, or that language came to him and his people by way of beings referred to as the Anunnaki. Anu referred to as the heavenly one. Na means the na means to come down. The na in 50s, key to earth.
Okay. Anu, everyone, and come on. Nah, 50s, key, earth. All right, let's see. Wait. So The language was this. How you say that?
Language did he speak? The language he spoke was called Ugarit. That's the language he spoke was called
Ugarit.
Ugarit. And he was
Ugarit.
taught that language, or that language came to him and his people by way of beings referred to as the Anunnaki.
Okay,
Anu
okay.
referred to as the heavenly one. Na means the N is, means to come down. The Na in 50s, key to earth.
Gotcha.
Abraham was taught a language by way of a group of extraterrestrials known as the Anunnaki. In the Bible, you see the word they use is the Elohim. Now, going back to Adam now, if you had to give a name for the language that Adam spoke, it would have been called Adamic, named after him. But however, he was taught by, according to the Bible, the Elohim or God. So they're the ones who taught Adam. They wanted to test him. In Genesis chapter 2, you find out how they wanted to test Adam to see how well he could articulate the language. Now, they say that if Adam was the first man on the planet Earth, and religion only goes back 6,000 years and is well known, anthropologists, archaeologists, and the like all acknowledge that the first group of people on the planet Earth was Negroid from Africa. That means then that Africans would have been the first people on the planet Earth to be taught a language. So now, what is that language and how did language come about? So the question to ask is, was language imported or did language come with evolution? That's a question that needs to be asked.
Back to Pt.3, verse 83. The first language was in Africa, the language of the heavenly host, or Saba, Siba, Sheba, a language now named after her, the Queen of Sheba. In history, they called her the Queen of Sheba. Muslims called her Bilqis. Hebrews called her Makida, from Ma'at Ka'a Reye, or Hat Sha'eb Satak, Hatshepsut of ancient Egypt. She was an Egyptian, Ethiopian, Sudanese, Cushite woman. Verse 86, okay. They call her tongue Sabian and Nabatean, which is Aramaic, onto Arabic, Hebrew, and Syriac. They all come from Napatan or Nuwapuyi. So look again at their Bible, Genesis 2:2, you see Saba, and that translates as the heavenly host. Hebrews, for those who need the references, Hebrews Strong's number is 635. Those that came down from heaven to earth, to man, as the brother explained. Yeah, beings came down here and set up the language. So you can see Saba is Saba of Ethiopia, as you can see Sada is Sudan of Africa. Now amongst the Habaru, Hebrews, Shashasu, Israelites, and Muslamu, Muslims, the person who spoke to the Elohim, Yahweh or Allah, is the prophet. These people were responsible for bringing the message of God or gods to the people. So what did they call them in Hebrew from Chaldea? And the word would have been Nabi, prophet. Into the Hebrew, Naba, Nuba, prophecy. Into Nabuwa, prediction. Strong's number 5016, verse 93. And the same words in Arabic, Nabi, prophet, Nabwat, prophecy, and Nabuwa, prophetical, prophet. What letters or sounds do you see? Okay, you see the letters N and BW. Okay, these are known as root letters, okay? And then when you add the vowels in, or the tones, not really vowels, they're really tones. When you add the tones in, it then will change or shift the tonation of the word. So you have the word or Nabi, which is, again, put the vowels in, A or I or O, was it E, U, is that right? Yeah, so these actually would then kind of like change the tones and the pronunciation of the word, depending on whether it's elongated or shortened, etc. So going into the root now, for the person or persons who had a message from their gods. So these Nabu or Nabi, these prophets, these prophetical beings, and remember the root of it is coming from Nabatian, which is the root of it is going back to us as a race of people. That of course was taken from Nuwapians. And what's been explained to us is that when you look at the P, these can be interchangeable. The B and the P can be interchangeable. So sometimes you have the word Nuwap,
E and P, that makes sense.
Or Nuwap, as in Nuwapian. The master teacher was explaining to us that when somebody asks us what language we speak, and we say Sabaic or Sabbatic or Nuwapu, Nuwapt, he never gave them the meaning of it. And he did that on purpose, because then they have to come to us to get that meaning, because within the Adamic evolution and the Adamic translations of everything, they're given the authority on words. They've given the authentication on words, the authority on words, and they've made it authentic. So nobody will question them. But now they have to come to seek to ask us what does Nawapu or Nawapt means, and he kept that hidden. Okay, but we'll explain what that means. So let me just finish off this, and then that of course was taken from Nawapu, Nawapians, Wu-Nawap. Hence we call the doctrine, the science, Wu-Nawap. Take a close look at the Hebrew, Nebuah for prediction, and the Arabic, Nabuwaya for prophetical. And you can see Nawapuyi from these same roots, as the B and the P are interchangeable. 97. So the bringer of God's words, or the one to foretell, was going to happen next, had that title. The beings from Sabat, Sirius star system, and Sa'at, Orion star system, who created the heavens, mentioned in their book of Job, chapter 9, verse 1 to 9, Job 38, 1 to 32, and also by another Nabi prophet called Amos in his book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 8.
Yeah, I just want to quickly backtrack, because
there's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there to unpack, but I'll be the reader and you'll be the explainer.
Yeah, what it is that the question is, was language imported or did it stem with evolution? And if we go back to 83 now, of the same Pt.3, speaking of tongues, I read it again, it's got here, 83. The first spoken language was in Africa. The language of the heavenly hosts, or Tsaba in Hebrew, or the Saba, Siba, or Sheba. The word heavenly host is Tsaba in Hebrew, Saba, or Siba, or Sheba. That alone lets you know that the language was named after those heavenly hosts, as Jamal just read. It came from the Sirius star system, or we refer to as Masbat, the Sirius star, and from Sa'ahat, Orion star system. So the language we say Misbatia today, or Sabaic, was named after those heavenly hosts. They named this language, a language now named after her, the Queen of Sheba. So it's attributed to her, the Queen of Sheba. Now, when we say was language imported or did it come with evolution, this is letting you know here that the language was imported to the planet, first to the Africans, and to be more specific, it was the females who were first taught language on this planet 54,000 years ago. They were taught by beings we refer to as Nadaru, or a scientist, we should say, galactical scientists from the Sirius star system. Okay. So you see the word heavenly host, and they use the word Tsaba, or Saba, or Siba. You can hear the word Sabian, or Sabians, or we say Misbatians, or so we say Musbat or Sabians from the Sirius star system. However, there is a history on how this all took place. It was we refer to term as Nazaratat, or the female deities or female overseers who came and taught the females on this planet Earth, the African females. But first they had to do an experimentation. They had to utilize the African grey parrot and also a particular type of baboon referred to as the Hamadras baboon, to see if they could mimic certain words. Prior to that, it was only the deities or the Nazaru who spoke language. So what had to happen is an anatomical alterations had to take place within the female, such as within the larynx and the vocal cords. That had to take place before they were introduced to the language. So that occurred 54,000 years ago. And after that, it was the feminines, we say the feminines, who then in turn taught the masculines this art or this secret of communication with the heavenly hosts and other people. So was language imported or did it come with evolution? It was imported. And there's a lot that came with language. So I just want to pass it on now back to Mazamel.
Hold on. I'll be right back. Wait.
Osir?
Tota. Yeah, so as the brother explained regarding, because we're now moving from the origin, evolution, into the science. So it's a natural transitional flow.
Here we go.
The science is that you're looking at a genetic test, as the brother explained, okay, where a particular gene known as the FOXP2 gene, okay? But the FOXP2 gene is in a particular chromosome which gives you speech and articulation. If you have noticed, some families or people who have speech impediments, etc., is because that particular gene has not been expressed fully, or in its, and what the masters always explain is that females are the best articulators. They're able to speak, and they speak
I'm trying, bro. I'm trying.
faster and they think faster. So this gene is actually to do with your ability to access information very quickly.
Hold up. Let's read it. The Pt.3 gene is a key player in human speech and language development, encoding a transcription factor crucial for brain development and the ability to control facial movements necessary for speech.
And also the ability to articulate eloquently and convey information. That's what that particular FOXP2 gene is responsible for, and that's linked into the female.
Look. I'm all about science, you know what I'm saying? Of course, degree in physics is crazy work, but yeah.
Tying back into the genetic alteration that was done in order to house this gene, and then for it to then descend down eventually to the point where the females could then speak at a quicker rate and access information at a faster rate. Okay, that's the science there.
Development. With a language came culture and advanced development. Now, if you look at if you go into anthropology, you see that you have certain groups of people referred to as, you then use the word Australopithecus afarensis, Australopithecus africanus, so all these Australopithecus, Neanderthal, etc., etc. With the advancement of language came what's referred to as we said, a development in culture and a development in intellect. There's a lot that came with language. I want to say this, which is, when we say came at advanced development, you have two groups of people. You have what's referred to as anatomically modern humans, and you have behavioral modern humans. When we say anatomical modern humans, what we're saying is these are human beings that look like us, but they never act like us. The behavioral modern humans, meaning that they look like us and they acted like us. And that action how they acted like us came about with the intervention of language. And as we said before, with the language came advancement in tool utilization, basically culture. And culture is all-inclusive of everything. So we have what we refer to again as behavioral modern humans. We have the anatomical modern humans. The anatomical modern humans are those that look like us, but they didn't behave like us. The behavioral modern humans, meaning that they looked like us 54,000 years ago, and they act like us 54,000 years ago. That's how we are today. The two types, okay?
Okay, so going to the verse 99. Now, when you look back at Genesis 2:2, you see the host Sabatu, Enneads, hosts of Pt.3, heavens, and Taha, earth. They who are Hebrews are said to speak Habarui, Hebrew, and those who are Arabs are said to speak Arabui, Arabic. So those who are of the Saba host must have spoken Sabbatic, only stands to reason. Even the Muslims say that their prophet Muhammad or Ahmed ibn Abdullah was taken up to the heavens, Quran 17 verse 1. I'm just going to give you quotes and keep it short and not to elongate it. Verse 102. So he went up to the heavens, a place, and he spoke to their God, Allah, from behind a curtain. I just wanted to point out something actually when I wrote that, the word masbat. Okay, that word here, ma, means place. Okay, so that's denoting, anytime we see the word ma in front of our language, it denotes a place, okay, or dwelling. So this masbat, okay, it's talking about a place where, of the stars, okay, and that's what it's representing. So, our language literally is telling you in the meaning and the tones that we are of the stars, okay, that's where the language is coming from. So verse 104, right in their own Quran, it says where he is at and where he rules. So they talk about Allah is in a place where he rules, okay? And it's one star system, Sabat, yeah? So the Sirius star system is where this particular being resides in. So they're just showing you that it's a place, it's a system of stars where many advanced beings originate from. And when you go and look into your writings of the Dogon and other places like in South America, you go to South Africa amongst the Zulus and people in Zimbabwe, all refer to the Sirius star systems, okay? Sabat Sirius in ancient Egypt, it was also called Sabat, Sothis, and Sopdet. So I just wrote that down for people to research it. So you can see the same name for the same Nathar, who my humble brother here brought down, whom they call gods or the heavenly host. And what did Yeshua or Jesus say in their New Testament, John 3:31 and John 8:23? Ye are from beneath and I am from above. The word used in that Greek Strong's number 507 is the word anu, okay? Or they'll have it in the Greek as ano. Okay, in the Greek. From with his father, who was where? Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. Our Father who art in, let's now replace these words because this is what the part of the whole thing about language is that the English language and other Roman and the Indo-European languages are part of the spell, okay? So when you look into the Greek here, you have ano, Greek, which means the heavens, all right? And you have also in the Greek, Oranos, which clearly you see as Orion. So yes, Jesus' father is in Sa'at, Orion star system, a 7 major stars called the 7 heavens above. This is where you get your 7 heavens in the Quran, you know what I mean, and Muhammad traveling through the 7 heavens, etc., and everything's all in sevens. They all make it so clear where their God, Theos, Allah, Rab, Lord, Yahweh, Elohim, and Alihat, and are in Sabat Sirius or Sa'at Orion, and with the host, or as one of the hosts. And remember, there was a good and bad heavenly host, Safaru, Seraphim, and Karabu, Cherubim, which goes into the Anunnakis, okay, and there are many different names and titles.
Yeah, just quickly jump in there. And going back what Zamani said, it talks about the different languages, the Greek, the Roman, Indo-European languages. This then asks, the next question is language race specific? The answer is yes. Language is race specific because the language deals with the tones, frequencies, and vibrations on which a race or people vibrate on. Not all races vibrate on the same frequency. You could tell that by the music of the Europeans, the music of the Hindus, the music of the Orientals, the Chinese, the Koreans, and the music of Negroids, that's from Africa, or the reggae music. You know, that language is, because music really basically goes back to tones, frequencies, and vibrations. So is language race specific? The answer is yes. Language is race specific, and there are languages that can be constructive or destructive. We have languages that are conducive, unconducive, and you've got languages that are conductive and unconductive to a specific race.
True, very true. Yeah, like let's just give like an everyday observation. When you are going into a particular area, neighborhood, okay, you hear a particular language being spoken. They even have an area named after the Asians, for instance. You with me? You go to Chinatown, you know that when you go there, you're gonna hear the Chinese being spoken. So as the brother said, language is very specific to a particular race or people. And with that in itself is also to do with the genetics and their DNA and how it reconfigures them, and also how they view things. What you have to realize is language is also a way of how you're able to perceive your reality. And us speaking a language which is a dead language, okay, that has no relevance to us, as the brother said, is that it's either constructive or destructive. You with me? So it's actually not helping us, it's actually doing the counterproductive effect on us as a race of people. So we're not perceiving things through the eyes of our ancestors or through the eyes of what is real reality to us. Hence, there's so many different conflicts and misunderstanding between us because we're not conveying in our own language, which has a frequency, a tone, and a vibration, yeah? And that means that I won't be arguing with my sister or my brother because we have a particular resonance that we have between each other, okay? And that's the importance of the language, and that's why we're advocating and pushing and spreading Wu-Sabat and the language, etc. because it deals with tones, vibration, frequencies, and the reconfiguration of your DNA. Right, so we jump back into Pt.3. Yeah, we're doing our best to get this information out there. So 114. So now we know where creation was first. Africa's Sudan, Ham, Ethiopia, Cush, and Arabia, Foot. We know who created the host, Saba, why it was called Saba, Sheba, and that the heavenly host spoke Sabbatic. Verse 116. These beings sent humans to warn others and tell them what is to come, were called Nabi in Hebrew and Nabi in Arabic, meaning prophet, and their good news spoken in a tone or tongue of the people for whom it was intended. Okay, so verse 116 is a very poignant point there. It's essentially saying to you that, as the master has explained to us now, and the revelation is that we are the next prophets of the next 24,000 year cycle. So our job is to go and teach this information in the tones of our people, the true tones, so that they can waken up to that spell that they're being placed under. Okay, let me jump to verse 117. The first language spoken by mortals was Nuwapic from Sabbatic, and Genesis 11:1 says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech, dialect. It was Nimarad, who had returned from his father Cush's land, where they still spoke Napatan, Nuwapui, Sabbatic, and brought this tone back with them, which was not spoken in Shinar or Sumer under the gods who ruled there. So that's showing you there's a distinction and differentiation between who ruled where and what language was spoken or what tones were spoken and how it affected the people. Verse 119, this different tongue or tone caused a problem because speaking a different tone not only changes your bodily vibration, yet also changes your physical appearance, okay? So that is, again, another alluding to the fact that when we start to speak our language, if you look at a specific race like the Chinese, yeah, it's not because they're all just born and they all have the, epithantic fold and they have, high cheekbones, etc. It's because language literally does shape the facial features. That happens because you're using certain muscles and certain expressions on your face. And then that being happening is actually over the course of time actually going to alter and change your physiology, including your face, okay, and your facial features. So, verse 120, not only that, the language, it changed the channel or station the people were listening to. So the language is not just a frequency that just me and you can hear when we're conversating with each other. It's a language and frequency that permeates the actual environment. You with me? And it actually affects this station. This station is that there's radio waves that are constantly being emitted. Okay, and sound, as you know, sound travels, or if you go and research, let's say, about sound, not that you know, but if you research about sound, sound travels and doesn't really have an ending. It just travels and travels and travels. You with me? In different waveforms, and then it will embed itself somewhere else, but it continuously keeps traveling. So this station is being broadcasted by those beings who are known as Anakim, to control a particular people that was in that area of Sumer. And this is what the God of the Bible or the beings didn't want to happen when Nimrod went over there and started to change the tones. Once it changed the channel or station the people were listening to, and thus they were no longer under the control of this God. Genesis chapter 11, verse 67. Again, do your research, read the verse, and you start to see. Verse 121. The Sabatu spoke Sabbatic or Sabian, and is the same script we use today as Nuwapui. So, verse 122. At this point in time, outside of Africa, there was cause for change. Genesis chapter 11, verse 68. And this Yahweh and those with him, we know, were cherubim by Genesis 3:22 to 24. Okay, verse 123. That ties in very well, actually. The next part that we're going to mention, I guess we can cover when it talks about the script. Okay, so we delve into that. You see here, okay, if I bring it up close, right, that's our Harofat, and this is the script. Okay, so these are Sabaic letters.
Is that a YouTube video? Is that an app?
Okay, so we delve into that. You see here, okay, if I bring it up close, right, that's our Harofat.
It's a video. Sabatic letters with pictures.
Facts. And this is the script, okay?
Oh shoot, I keep
So
pausing.
these are Sabatic letters with pictures. So we're just gonna write some down so you get a feel of it.
I'd just like to say something here. Zamal was mentioned about the God of the Bible and Genesis chapter 11. Genesis chapter 11 is a very pertinent chapter that pertains to language. Or the story of Genesis 11 is talking about the Tower of Babel and Nimrod and his people. And it says here, let's read it. Genesis chapter 11, verse 6 to 7 reads, "And the Lord, Yahweh, said, Behold, or look, the people is one, they're united, and they all have one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Everything that they imagine to do, they'll be able to do." So this was a concern to this Lord or this Yahweh. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So this is letting you know then that, as Zamal said earlier on, that their language is race specific. And these, or Nimrod's people, they spoke a language that cut off the broadcasting, the messages that was coming from this particular Lord or God. And this God saw that the people were now united. Yeah. So this is the same thing that's happening to us as Negroes in this day and time. When we say is language race specific, the answer is yes. And what's happening to us is that because we are not speaking our own language, we are what's referred to as a disenfranchised people. And the unification will come once we start speaking our own language. And once we start speaking our own language, everything will change. It'll be like what's referred to as a game changer. Now we can go into the language itself, and our language, Miss Batir, is written from right to left, but it can also be written from left to right. Now this is, reading language, we say from right to left or left to right. This is a very important point. What it is that our brain has been so constructed to read and write from right to left. Because in terms of reading and writing, it's from right to left. In terms of doing mathematical calculations, it should be from left to right. So when we at the English language, it is read from left to right, but that is contrary to how our brain has been so constructed. We should be reading from right to left. And we do mathematical equations. We are taught to first do the units first, then we do the tens, then we do the hundreds, and then we do the thousands from right to left. So it's a backward system. However, now we have the master teacher, Partner Babi Nana, we have Miss Wu-Sabat, the culture. We're now setting the record straight and correcting things. So now we can quickly go into the language and just show you how it's written. Okay, so we're looking at the script now. And when we say we write from right to left, this is how we do it. This is what we call the A. We don't say A because it's all about tone, fluidity, and French. We say A. Okay, in English, then we say A. Then we have Ba. As you can see how I'm writing it, I'm writing it from the right going in this direction. So we're writing from right to left in this direction. As we said earlier on, because that's how our brain processes language from right to left, as opposed to English, we read from left to right, which is contrary to how our brain is meant to process the written word. Okay, so now each of these letters, as you say, has a specific tone, has a specific frequency, and has a specific vibration. So we would say the A, the Ba, the Ka, the Cha, the. This is how we speak, how we pronounce the letters. However, correct pronunciation has got to do with what we call the vowels, and we are taught that there are 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, U, but in actuality, there's only 3 vowels, which we...
Bruh, what? I thought he was doing ABC.
Say the A, the E, and the U. The A...
Okay, wait. These are very close to the Wakandian letters. Bruh, hold up. Let me look at the Wakandan letters real quick. Hold up. Where'd they get the Wakanda letters from? See? Wait. It's not the same though, is it? It's not. There's no way. Is he? B, C. It's a little different. That's cool though. Wakanda. What?
E-U. And this is the foundation for most languages on the planet, the vowels, I-E-O. There is a hidden meaning behind this term here, A-E-O, because we have what we call, since in Miss Batia, we ascribe and subscribe to the Egyptian mystery systems, and this I-E-O is what we refer to as the ancient Egyptian order. And this is letting you know the origin of language. These vowels, I-E-O's, letting you know the origin of language, which has come from the Egyptian mystery systems, or let me say.
So this is the vowels. This is the vowels, right? Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to take note and remember that Egypt is in Africa. We don't say Africa, we say Afaf, Re, Ka'a. They call it
Afaf.
Africa, which is from the Arabic Ifriqiya, means divide and separate. But the master said, no, we call it Afaf, Re, Ka. Those who are of the spirits of the sun, Re. And the origin, we say that the I-E-O, the three vowels, the A-E-O, the ancient Egyptian mysteries order. So going back to these vowels, the vowels are very important because it's the vowels that help shape the pronunciation of words. The A-E-O. Once you got the vowels on lock, these just three vowels, all other, the pronunciation will start to come.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as the Dal is explaining that the mystery system, because it's dealing with certain, these are formulas, okay? And those formulas tie into also the tones which we advocate in Wu-Sabat. We teach is that FAC are our natural tones. So the FAC, which is dealing with the universe, the planet or nature, and also the planet, the universe, and the human body. So you have these three particular tones that we are constructed of, okay? So F is the planet or the nature's tone, and then you have C, which is the cosmos, okay, dealing with the universe, and then you have A, which is the body tone. So we were constructed in a particular way by our ancestors genetically in order to resonate on those frequencies. And even if you go and study whale sounds, whales also utilized a lot of the F and a lot of the A in their communication. But you do your research, you find this out. Okay, so, I'm just gonna read something again, because now that we're dealing with the science, there's a part from the prism, it's called the Pt.3, the prism, and it says, the master teachers explained to us, learn to speak muawhh Sabaik in your own tone and words. It's based on optical manifestation of sonic energy, okay, and blocks out all interferences of demonic tones. It's about vocalization and visualization, which equals manifestation. So again, the formulas of how we're calling on our ancestors in our chants that we do, these are actually we're vocalizing it, and the intention behind this, okay, is allowing certain things to manifest in this realm. As we speak the language, as we chant the language, as we think about the language, etc., all of these things are happening and is taking place and is protecting you from demonic forces, because these demonic forces to us would be 6 ether, because 6 ether is adverse to 9 ether, and we are 9 ether beings who are striving to become a perfect being, okay, in order to make the grade to be accepted by our ancestors who exist in higher realms. So it's all important for us to be vibrating and in resonance with these frequencies. Very, very important, the language to us. Because this actually links into the next thing. So I'm going to talk about the cherub. This particular cherub, who is known in the book of Ezekiel. Book of Ezekiel talks about this particular cherub known as Lucifer. Okay, so we'll start from verse 1 to 2. So at this point in time, outside of Africa, there was cause for change. Genesis 11:6-7, which my brother read out. And this Yahweh and those with him we know were cherubim by Genesis 3:22-24, verse 1-3. We also know the anointed cherub was evil. Yeah, Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 1-14. And on you see they are of Tyre or Tyr. That's Ka'anu, Canaanites. Matthew chapter 15, verse 21-23. So again, do your research of who lived in that area. You find out it's the Canaanites, and the Canaanites link into the cherubs, who are these incarnated beings. Verse 1-4. Canaan begot Sidon, Genesis 10:15, and from him came the women of Tyr and Sidon. The prince of Tyr, or the prince of cherubs, is with this Yahweh, who did not want Adam to learn or be their equal. Genesis 3:22-24. So in Genesis 11:5, he and the anointed cherubs, the cherubim, came down from heaven to cause confusion on Babel, as it states in verse 9, and is how you get your many dialects from that one first language spoken by the heavenly host to humans in Africa on the Nile River. Verse 1-8. In the garden in Foot or Arub, Arabia, and it's called Nuwapuyi, Nuwapik today with same script. You can find this today, this day, some of the same words found in Hebrew, found in Igbo, in Nigeria, as well as in Arabic, in Hausa, in Nigeria, which by the way means Negroid land. Verse 130. You find Hebrew and Arabic words in Akan of Ghana. I can testify to that because I'm from the Akan people and the Ghana region. So I know certain words in Miss Batia, you say, oh my goodness. And then you can kind of like relate and like, okay, this makes sense. So as well as in Bassa of Liberia to this very day, that did not come into Africa yet were already there. Verse 131. Not those mixed tongues such as Swahili, which is Bantu or Bentu, and Arabic, originating from Arabia. In the north, each Muslim country got it from Indo-Arabs, invading Africa with their Islamism religion for slaves, trade, gold, and spices. So you have Amharic, which is mixed with Latin and Greek, and then Coptic, Ge'ez, mixed with Greek and Latin. So, who are all speaking tongues or dialects or Sabaic or Sabbatic, which is now Nuwapuyi, Nuwapik, from Napata, Sudan, Meroe, Ethiopia. That is Hatat, Ka'a, Patah, and Hatat, Ba'a, Patah, the north and south of ancient Egypt. Don't let them try and fool you. They all got their tongues from Nuwapuyi, Nuwapik, Napata, along the Nile River. Don't believe me. Check it out.
I know that we went into it a bit. However, we got to know the science behind the language or the science behind languages and the origin of languages. So now we can give you the art of the application of the language. Now, the first thing we say when we meet each other or we greet each other, we say
Rahubat, Zama.
Rahubat. Rahubat. Now, you say it means greetings. However, there is a deeper meaning behind this word here, word Rahuba, the root letter, Rahuba. The word, see this word here, this word there, who. This pertains to hua and also pertains to huhi. Now, I just want to write this symbol here, and this is how the master teacher wrote it, like this.
That broken English though.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That symbol? So, when we are saying, and this is how the master teacher wrote it, like this. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. So that's hue.
So when we are saying Rahubat, and it's Rahubat, this letter here, this ha, it's not ha, but it's ha. So we're saying Rahubat, and this hu, this symbol, as Zamal broke that.
I'm about to say I'm about to get that tight.
As written like that, pertains to
divine love.
What's another word for
Ashuk?
Write that down there, please.
Ashuk.
Ashuk. Okay. This who, hua, and
you should have wrote it down there.
This who is one of the many creative forces of will. The hu-he is the masculine and feminine principle behind the creative forces of will. The hua means he or it and. This symbol of who is ashuk or divine love. So what we are actually saying in our greetings, when we say Rahubat, we are actually saying we greet you all with, by way of hu, hua, and hu-he, with divine love. These are the hidden messages behind our greetings.
May I just interject there?
Go ahead, sir.
So, as again going to do the science, this is causing a reverberation, a vibration in your being. You understand? So, the science and the formula of the language is that it's unlocking keys in your genetics. Yeah. When we go into genetics, you're dealing with not just the genes, but there's something that they've now opening into called epigenetics. Okay, epigenetics
Gonna write that down.
work by way of something called expression, and they sit on top of your genes. And what they do is every time you're speaking the language that we're speaking, and the vibration and the formulas that's been utilized is actually expressing certain genes and is unlocking certain genes in your divine coding. But what the English does by way of its force is that it locks those genes. It actually closes and shuts it.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention, but it almost looks like a stroller or something. Oh shoot, can y'all see that? Yeah, okay. Divine love. Divine love. Shook. Let's just go back a bit. Ta-da! I'm learning. I'm learning. All right. I'm done showing that off. Okay. Find love. Why is it on mute?
Causing a reverberation, a vibration in your being. You understand? So the science and the formula of the language is that it's unlocking keys
I really might get this tatted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
in your genetics. Yeah. When we go into genetics, you're dealing with not just the genes, but there's something that they've now opening into called epigenetics. Okay, epigenetics work by way of something called expression, and they sit on top of your genes. And what they do is every time you're speaking the language that we're speaking, and the vibration and the formulas that's been utilized is actually expressing certain genes and is unlocking certain genes in your divine coding. But what the English does by way of its force is that it locks those genes. It actually closes and shuts it off. Okay, so that's why we're saying that the language is very, very important for us to study. It's not just me and you having a nice chat in the corner shop. You know what I mean?
In the corner of the day.
Exactly.
Check this out. See this word here, who, he? It's the masculine and feminine principles. Hear this now, family. Make sure that you all got your
attention.
Pay attention. Put your seatbelts on.
Students.
So you put your seatbelts on, you don't fall off the floor. There's more behind it. Right. This word, who, he.
I'm locked.
If you read it from right to left, you get I, U. This I has a Y sound. These are similar. The Y sound and the I sound are similar. This U would be your W, because a W really just a W. And look what you get. And read it, write it from, again from right to left, you get this. So you got Y, H, W, H, which is?
Yahweh.
And they translate this as Lord. So there alone, you can see where this word Yahweh, Y-H-W-H, where it is coming from, going to take you back to the Egyptian mystery symbols again from this Etherians called Hu, He. This is the origin of their god, or where they grafted this word Yahweh from.
And just an update the master gave us. We must represent our culture to the fullest. We explained what culture is. Language determines a race's culture. Okay? With all that is going on today in this world, people whom do not have a culture will not survive. It's imperative we dress our cultural dress, speak our cultural tongue, Nuwapui, Sabatia, eat our cultural foods, and dance our cultural dances. So that's just putting it out there for those who are serious about.
What about who we? I don't know. Is it Huey? Hugh? I don't know. The male.
The language and
Hua.
embracing Wu-Sabat in their lives.
While the man is looking for that, just like to add something here about the culture, because as we said earlier on, just can reiterate it once again. Our culture, Wu-Sabat, or we say back in the days it was Wu-Nawab, one and the same thing, Wu-Sabat. Your culture is all inclusive. your means, our means of identification. Without a culture, that means you haven't got an identity.
Exactly.
And the question to ask now then is, who are you? And the thing, what we tend to, if you haven't got a culture, what we would do is we would adopt a culture or a foreign culture, a culture that's not being constructed by one of us for all of us. So that's what happens. We start to speak a language that's not really constructed by us. We start to dress, eat food, live a way of life that's not for us. So Wu-Sabat has been so constructed, as we read earlier on, coming from way from the stars down here to the planet for us Negroids. So a culture that's constructed by the heavenly host for their children here on the planet Earth.
This is perfect. Guess what I just came across in that language? Our Karas Masas. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna do a little thing. Obviously, I'm gonna be honest, I don't speak it fluently, but we are making progress. All right, so this is a lesson from our platform, and it's basically to do with our Children's Day that's coming up. So I'm gonna start, and then you can continue from there. Rahubat Moisar, Panin Chabut, Nahun Shawil Natuk Anen Pa Karas Masas.
Greetings, family. This month we will speak about the Christ child.
Number 2, Panin Atel Zamut Kawun Maneh Pa Sapa Anen Pa Ladud Shalil Hara Haroyu Anhu Asar Wu Ashashtat.
This holiday is from the story about the birth of Horus, his parents Osiris and Isis.
Wu Hayen Wakutum Shalil Kadim Mahmat Asar Wu Ashashtat Kawuna Radu Mahmat.
Once upon a time of ancient Egypt, Osiris and Isis were ruling Egypt.
Pa Natar Asar Lamuda Pa Muzwalu Shalil Pa Arase Laye Zarua Bora.
The overseer Osiris taught the people of the land to grow food.
Anhu Lamuda Hum Lameh Laye Shayuk Pa Muzra'ah Ba'ed Pa Shamut Al Mabal Shalil Pa Nayal Nahar.
He taught them when to plant the seeds after the annual flooding of the Nile River.
Anthum Anuda Sa'um Ranuna Hara.
He doing good.
They had a son named Horus.
Lameh Pa Wakut Wasula Lake Ladut Hara Ashashtat U Shakaktat Nababtat Nasura Anha.
When the time arrived to birth Horus, Isis' sister Nephthys helped her.
Pa Masut Zadid Labdud Anhu Shalag Shakuta Lahe Pa Rahan Wakut Jawef Masbatia.
The evening before his birth, snow fell for the first time in Sabbatia.
Nahun Haful Panin Atal Zamut Jawef Karun Shalil Mukhrat Hum.
We celebrate this holiday in honor of their child.
Tawukum.
Tawakum.
Tawakum. What that mean?
Tawakum Lahe, thank you for the and the questions. Tadrush, I think Tadrush at is questions. Okay, and we'll close it off, and thank you for listening, and I hope this has been exciting and invigorating and thought-provoking teachings.
Edification.
Edifications, all of that, yeah? So we end by our greeting.
I just want to explain what we just did there. What we're doing is we hold up our hands, we are bringing the rays together, we are touching what we call the third eye. Beneath the nose we call the mirror, the pyramid, and beneath the chin we call the barotheric gland, the gland that gave us access, random access to the divine. We bow and we are saying, Port Kawun, all is.
Just a minute, add two. I'm going to tease him a bit. He's an elder. So with that, I bow lower to an elder. Okay, so that's part of our culture. Yeah, we bow lower.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
And what will we do?
Good stuff. Wait, hold on. Oh my gosh. Wait, how much should I do? I think I'm gonna stop my recording right there.